Assalamu alaikum guys. This is AMRI Multan and I'm your presenter Hadid Ashraf. Today you will be learning how to write an abstract and improve your article. I'm working as design engineer at Agricultural Mechanization Research Institute Multan, Agriculture Department, Government of the Punjab, Pakistan. The goal of this presentation is to discuss why an abstract is so vital to the success of your article and to provide some tips to ensure that you write the best possible abstract. First, let's reiterate the process of writing an article. The sequence of writing an article is not the same as reading it. Usually the most efficient way is to imagine the article as a wall and build it brick by brick. You start with producing your tables and figures. This is essentially the data that will help support your research and prove your results. Remember to include clear captions or legends when presenting these in your paper. Next, you need to describe the methods you used, the results you found, and your discussion around these results. Writing your conclusions should flow on from this quite easily. Now you need to tackle the introduction, and here you would include your viewpoint on where your work fits into the field as a whole. Finally, you will write the title, abstract, and keywords. You should find that using this process of building the article is easier, more logical, and more effective than trying to write an article in the sequence it will be read. Now let's discuss why the abstract in your article is so critical. Although the abstract is one of the last elements of an article to be written, it is one of the first elements that will be read by your peers. You should treat your abstract as a shop window. As the contents of a shop window entice buyers to look inside, so does your abstract. It entices readers to open your article and read it. Before your article is even published, it needs to be peer reviewed. Potential reviewers will decide to review your article based on the title and abstract only. Your abstract sets the reviewers' expectations about your article. So if it lacks vital information and is dull or poorly written, for example, a reviewer may decline to review your article and prefer to spend time on an article that appears to have more potential or tackle more interesting research. Once published, your article will end up in a search and discovery database like Science Direct. Unless your article has been published under the open access license, only the title and abstract are freely available to everyone. Your abstract needs to be strong enough to stand out from the crowd and entice your readers to want to know more about your current research. Most readers of scientific articles will tell you that they first read the title. If the title is of interest to them, they will then read the abstract. While reading the abstract, the reader will decide if the rest of the article is of interest to them or not. This means the value of your abstract is the difference between your article being read or not. It could even be the difference between your article being cited or not. Therefore, the quality of your abstract could decide whether your article reviewed or rejected, read or ignored, cited or not cited. It stands to reason that a good researcher will spend a lot of time writing the best abstract they can. Time to check your understanding. What is the correct workflow when writing an article? The correct answer is option B. Now let's find out the different steps or components of writing an ideal abstract. Once you have decided on the journal to submit to your article, the next task is to find and read the guide for authors. You should do this before you begin to write anything down. A journal's guide for authors describes exactly the format and structure in which the journal editors and the publisher wish to receive their article. A good guide for authors will include information on types of papers the journal accepts, ethical standards, copyright information, supplementary materials, funding source information, the publishing process, and including information specially on the abstract and other elements of the article. So bottom line is, read the guide for authors before you start writing anything. Best practice would be to read it 2 or 3 times. This could save you a lot of time down the road if you haven't understood the journal article requirements properly. If there is no guidance provided in the guide for authors from the journal you intend to submit to, then a typical length of your abstract should be between 200 to 250 words. Since an abstract aims to summarize the article, it should be concise and carefully constructed. Make every single word count in your abstract. Spend time writing and rewriting in order to perfect it. Do not use long descriptive sentencing which are boring. If your article is to be written in English, but this is not your native language, then be sure to ask someone to check the abstract or help you write it. Remember, everyone including editors, reviewers and the readers judge your article initially based only on the title and abstract. It is vital to ask yourself what is the process of my research and why readers should care about it. If you are presenting new or novel research, then it is important to succinctly describe the problem you have solved. Similarly, if you are building upon larger research, then this should be outlined here too. Consider why you want your research to be interesting. Why did you decide to study this topic or problem? Try to entice your readers by attracting their interest in it too. Finally, be sure to clearly state what your key argument or main findings are. Readers will want to know how you decided to solve the problem, or how you went about making the progress on a bigger problem. What exactly did you do to reach your results? For example, did you interview in a cross-section of 30 people? Did you conduct a 2-year study on 30 patients? Which analytical models or data sets did you use? Briefly discuss your research and include your variables and the scope of your work in your abstract. Include the evidence you have to support your main claim and key findings, and include your most important resources. When writing about your findings and conclusions, you need to include the information on what the answer to the problem is, or whether your hypothesis has been supported or not. Be direct here and don't use vague language. A statement like, "A small percentage of schools in the UK are found to be negligent in offering sufficient access to reading material for home use." It does not add any value to the reader. Instead, it is better to use exact language. For example, 4.3% of primary education schools in the UK do not offer the required level of reading material for home use. Consider also the implications of your findings. Do not exaggerate them. A few of researchers change the world with one single finding. Most build upon the other work already completed. They help to add the understanding of the topic rather than completely change it. Finally, again we go back to the question of value. The last important component to be included in your abstract is on the value of the results. Again, do not exaggerate here. Represent a fair analysis of the value of your research in your opinion. It is also wise to ask one or two of your peers to assess whether you have judged the value of your results correctly before you submit your article to the journal. Limitations to your research can also be discussed here. You may also decide to pose a question or an opinion on what the next step in your research might include. Time to check your understanding. The journal you have chosen to submit your article to does not provide any instructions on how long your abstract should be. What is the general guideline you should use in this case? The correct answer is option C. Now, some journals will provide guidance in the guide for authors on whether they prefer articles being written in passive or active voice. If not, then it is wise to select the active voice, which is most often used when writing an article and therefore should also be used when writing an abstract. When you are bound by a word count, this can make all the difference in getting all your points across to the reader. Remember that your article, once published, will likely end up being hosted on a search and discovery database like ScienceDirect. Therefore, to improve the chance of your article being listed in the search results, you really need to concentrate on using the right keywords. Not exceeding the required word count sounds obvious, but even so, some researchers fail on this point. If a journal has specified maximum word count, then do not exceed this. The last thing you want to do when submitting your article to a journal is to annoy an editor by demonstrating you have not read the guide for authors or have not respected the guidelines that the journal has in place. Remember, if there are no guidelines for the authors on word count for your abstract, then always follow the general rule of not exceeding 250 words. Again, it is important to mention that you should always avoid being general and vague in your abstract. Words like might, may, could, perhaps, maybe, very, or possible are not specific and direct enough. Time to check your understanding. Which one of the following options are written in active voice? Please select 3 options. The correct answer is option A, B, and E. If a journal allows highlights in the article, then authors are encouraged to use them. Highlights are a series of bullet points, and their function is to make it easier for the reader to judge the value of their abstract. A powerful set of highlights could greatly increase the chance that someone will read your article, so you are advised to think carefully about what you write in your highlights. It is very important to ensure they portray the core findings of your article. This example here clearly states what the reader can expect to discover in the article. Check the guide for authors for specific guidelines on number of bullet points allowed and maximum number of characters in those highlights. Here are some good examples of good graphical abstracts. They all represent a single, concise and pictorial and visual summary of the main findings of the article. This could either be a concluding figure from the article or a figure that is specially designed for the purpose, which captures the content of the article for readers at a single glance. A graphical abstract should allow the readers to quickly gain an understanding of the main take-home message of the paper, and it is intended to encourage browsing, promote interdisciplinary scholarship, and help readers identify more quickly the papers that are most relevant to their research interests. If you think your abstract is ready, always do at least a basic proofread and edit. Look at every single word and ask yourself, does that word need to be there? Does it add value to my abstract? Can I present my point in an even better way? It is often a good idea to do this process, then leave the abstract alone for a day or two and return to it with fresh eyes. Very often you will certainly find a way to improve your work. Revisiting your work 2 to 3 times a day is a good habit and will only further refine and improve your writing skills. Always pass your article to a couple of trusted colleagues before you submit it. This is called the peer review before peer review process. Asking your professor, colleague, mentor or tutor, for example, to proofread your work and give feedback is vital before submitting it to the journal. Articles that are not well written and structured could be rejected, even if the science is sound. When you receive feedback or criticism on your abstract or your entire article from your peers, do not take it personally. Look at the feedback critically, openly and objectively. Once you have completed all of this, you are ready to submit your article. Time to check your understanding. Consider that your article is almost ready to be submitted to the journal of your choice. What final pointers should you keep in mind to ensure that it has the best chance of being accepted? The correct answer is option A and C. The more effort you put into writing your abstract, the more chances you have that the article will be found, read and cited, once published of course. Thank you for your attention. For questions and queries, please contact at the given email address. If you learned something today, please like, share, comment the video and subscribe the YouTube channel AMRI Multan. See you next time.